Hello, this is Damian Pichardo, and this is my yearly video submission. Um, it's been a bit challenging for me since I've become an Art2Ride Associate Trainer the past year um, to get any regular videos in because first of all, I don't own my own horse right now, and I haven't in the past year or so. And some people at the barn will let me ride their horses every so often whenever they are sick or not feeling good or out of town, those sorts of things. And I'm very lucky and honored to be able to do that. But because of that, my riding has been very inconsistent. Um, but the positive thing about the situation is that I have been able to ride a few different horses that are very different and have different challenges going on, either mentally, emotionally, or physically, and different levels of development along the process of development. Um, so in a way, it's been really good for me. Anyway, this here is Rafaela, which is owned by Sarah Montreal. Rafaela is going to be 7 in March. She is half Trakehner and half Hanoverian cross, um, which, as you know, can be a little rowdy at times. um, Rafaela has really come a long way. She's had, when Sarah got her, Sarah has a very busy schedule with her work. It takes up a lot of her time, so Sarah doesn't really get to spend quite as much time writing and working with Rafaela as she would like to. Hopefully that will change in the future, but it was kind of because of that. It was she had was working with Rafaela pretty inconsistently in the first few years that she had her. And because she was adding a little bit more to her work schedule, she decided that it was best for Rafaela's development to send her into training with Will um, full time for a while until she had more time to get out and work with her on a regular basis. So Will has had Rafaela the past, I would say, a little bit longer than a year. And when we first got her, Rafaela was looking around at everything that moved. She would spook off of anything, any sound, a car that drove by, a chicken that would crow, a leaf that would fall from a tree. But it was quite, she was quite explosive for the first quite a while that we had her. Um, and at times it seemed like she just wasn't really progressing. But we kept on it and kept persistent in her training, and she finally came around. I'll show you in just a second. I'll put up a before or a picture when Sarah got her and what she looks like. I think Sarah took this new picture just a month or two ago, so I'll go ahead and put that up. So here we have Rafaela at 3.5 years old. I think this picture was taken very close to when Sarah purchased her. And then a 6.5-year-old picture. Quite a difference, huh? Anyway, Sarah has a really good eye at seeing potential in horses. She saw, obviously, Rafaela looked a bit under the weather in that picture. But Sarah saw the potential as far as how she was built, her conformation, um, and and decided that it was a good idea to purchase her and see what would come of her. And so obviously you can see she's just a complete different horse now. Uh, she has come a long way in every way. She has it's almost like you replaced her mind with another horse's mind. she just finally decided to show up and decided that this work would be a lot easier if she just didn't explode and spook off of everything. I think she really ended up coming around and seeing that she could trust us, and obviously that takes some time, especially if a horse has a history of distrust with people. And so, anyway, we are getting started here. We're just opening her up now. I believe this was coming from a day off, so all the horses were a bit stiff and took a little while, a little bit longer to warm up. We like to give them the time that they need to warm up. That's never a set time. It all depends on how they feel at that time. As you've noticed while I've been talking, Rafaela she still gets pretty distracted. At times I try to maintain a good contact, a good feel of her mouth to continue to have a conversation, and I try to read her and feel her and catch her before she goes to look at something, and just start to have that conversation and say, no, I want you to stay in this stretch. It's a challenge for me, and a challenge for her, but she's been doing a pretty good job. So and when she does see something now or hear something, she might look up at it, but she very rarely spooks, and every once in a while, if something kind of quickly, like if a person walks back around the barn and she just happens to see them really quickly, she might jump at something like that. But anyway, so I'm just trying to get her into a nice stretch, just trying to open up the walk as we go, just really kind of using my legs one at a time. Just as she goes, I'm pushing her forward, trying to activate her back end more to step a little bit further up underneath herself and get over her back, and kind of obviously the stretch we say comes from the back end. So we're asking her to activate her back end, to come up underneath herself a little bit further as we go along, little by little. And as we ask her that energy comes from the back end through her back and pushes her neck out and forward, which is what we're wanting to see. And she's doing that. She's really interesting because as you watch her, she's like she'll pop up, and then I'll kind of get her into more of a working frame, and then as I ask her to continue to stretch down, you really see her gait improve when she really gets down into a nice deep stretch. Her back end really changes, and you can really see her. Once she does that, she gets a really nice swing through her back and really comes up underneath herself. And it really feels, this is a horse that when you're on her back and she gets there, she really starts swinging up through her back. Her back literally feels like, especially in the trot, when she gets there in the trot, her back feels almost like a trampoline. It's really amazing to feel when her back comes up, and I hear, you hear Will speak of the back should come up and carry you like a wave. And it literally feels, you can literally feel that, and it's just a really cool feeling with her. She's a really fun horse to ride. She's pretty responsive most of the time off the inside leg. She's been lately, in this video you'll see, I'll try to point that out, when she sometimes she ignores my outside leg a little bit, and so I like to put the whip on the outside of her, just to kind of back up that outside leg aid. And as soon as she starts responding to it again, then I'll obviously put the whip back on the other side. So yes, just trying to continue to open up that walk, and ask for more activation from behind. I did do some in-hand work with her before I got on her in this session. and we did film that. For some reason, the camera did not catch that. But in the past, we always lunched her because we never knew where her mind was at. So it would help us see where her mind was at, and also it would help us, her get her there before we got on her. But she's been doing so good lately that we really have just been doing a little in-hand work with her, and she does really great with in-hand work. She stretches pretty quick, um, uh, and gets really deep and opens up her, has a really nice open walk, activating from behind and really stretching. Um, and so she had a really good work in hand session. I wish that the camera would have picked that up, but we didn't get a chance to see that because she does really good with that. And again, if she gets there really quickly, we don't want to sit there and have her going around and working hand for 30 minutes. All of this work we want them to think is easy. When they do a good job, there's no reason. If I were to get on her back and she just got there within 5 minutes, and then I started to trot her, and she got over her back and she was there and working really well, in 5 minutes. At this point in her development, I would stop her right there, because you have to realize we're not just training her physically, but we're also always constantly training their mind. And so, every once in a while, obviously you don't want to do that every time that she gets there that quick, because then you wouldn't have a chance to continue to develop her physically and continue to improve her strength and all of those things, which is what we want to do. But every once in a while, if they just get there that quick while they're doing whatever we're asking them to do, every once in a while it's good just to quit them there and say, you know what, see how easy it is. If you do this, it feels good for you, and we can just stop, and you can get put back up and can eat your lunchtime hay or whatever. I really try to pay attention to every once in a while remembering that I'm also training their mind. So don't forget that. So again, I'm just still trying to ask her to open up the walk. So when I'm asking with one leg at a time as she goes along, I think of having the feeling of kind of pedaling a bicycle backwards, um, just to help encourage her to, with every stride, just to open her stride up and try to get her again more activated. And her step, um, brought her up here a little bit more of a working frame, which we've started to do. And she is not confirmed in the working frame necessarily, but she's definitely getting there. Obviously, when we bring them up into a working frame, when they have the same quality as they do when they're stretching, with being over their back and with their rhythm, as long as their rhythm doesn't change and the quality is there when you bring them up, then they're ready to come up into a working frame. Obviously, they will only be able to sustain that quality in the working frame for so long. So as soon as you feel that quality start to go, we want to send them back into a stretch like I just did, just to get the quality of that big back end and over her back, which you just saw. As soon as she stretched, you could see that quality come back. So it's just a matter of, slowly bringing them up into a working frame as they can maintain the quality. And then as soon as you feel them start to lose that quality, to take them back down into a nice stretch and get the quality of that movement and rhythm back. So you see me in this video sometimes, or in pictures, with my shoulders behind my hips. which can give the impression by the viewer that I'm pushing or driving with my seat. But I want to discuss this a little to let you know what I'm actually doing and why, and also what the difference is and what I'm doing versus driving with my seat. I lean my shoulders back a little to encourage the stretch by sending the energy forward, or if the horse is being behind a leg or a little bit sticky and not really wanting to move forward with their energy, we can keep our pelvis in a neutral position and bring our shoulders back a little behind the hip and heel alignment. This change in our balance of weight will send the horse's energy forward, and the opposite when our shoulders move forward in front of the hip heel alignment. That will send the energy backwards, which is why when we ask the horse to back up, we take our shoulders in front of our hip heel alignment. That sends the energy out the back of the horse. And if you sit on one of those big blow up medicine balls that you see at the gym a lot, workout balls, and you do this, you can sit on the ball, and when you lean your shoulders either frontwards or backwards without changing your pelvis, the ball will want to roll in the direction opposite of the direction of the shoulders leaning. This movement is not moving the pelvis in either a posterior or anterior tilt. And if this is done correctly, this bringing the shoulders back behind the pelvic and heel alignment takes a lot of core strength and keeps your head and chest lifted and actually makes your seat lighter, which is also helping the back and encouraging the back to come up a bit, which is good. Core strength is also very important in doing this correctly because you want to be able to maintain a very light contact with the rein and in no way use the rein for balance. And as with any aid, as soon as your horse responds, you should go back to your shoulder hip heel alignment, which is a neutral alignment. As a side note, only do this leaning of the shoulders back a little only when needed, really. I mean, and mostly just in the walk. Obviously, you don't want to start doing it all the time. Anyway, this move, opposed to when someone is using their seat to drive a horse forward, they're bringing the shoulders back usually because they have to use their own strength and body weight to hold the horse into collection, or what they call collection, which really isn't true collection. And a lot of riders use the reins for balance in this situation too. And in addition to bringing the shoulders back, they also posteriorly tilt their pelvis, which creates a push with their actual seat, which we are not doing when I bring my shoulders back. We don't teach or don't recommend driving with your seat. You should maintain a shoulder hip heel alignment and a light supple balance seat that moves with the horse's back, and also to apply the aids effectively and independently. Right after this video, I've made a quick little video to show you, to show and explain the full range of motion of the pelvis and showing you the difference between slightly bringing your shoulders behind the vertical line of your shoulder hip heel position and what I'm not doing, posteriorly tilting of the pelvis to drive the horse with my seat. So yeah, explain a little bit about that. So hopefully that'll clear up some of the confusion with some people. So anyway, to carry along with Rafaela here, we're going back and forth with her. It takes time. You know, this is a process, and it takes time, and being consistent with your horse. So again, Rafaela's come such a long way. I'm super proud of her, and she's such a beautiful girl, and I actually, there's not many horses that I really connect with, and Rafaela's kind of my girlfriend at the barn. So anyway, of course she's looking up here again, and I'm, I want to bring her back a little bit more into a working frame here, and we will bring her into a trot here for a second. Kind of keep her in a working frame. Now I want you to notice in the working frame her rhythm and how she's moving versus when I go to stretch her, and how, I mean, it's good in the working frame, but not as good as when she's in a nice full stretch like she is right now. Just kind of really swinging up, and you can see her really start to bounce, and just really coming up underneath herself. Her back legs start to really push up and forward through the back, springing up and forward with each stride. She really when she really connects, her back feels like you're on a trampoline. She's really got light contact too. She's really gotten to where she wasn't always that way, but she's really gotten a nice light contact, which tells me also that she's found her own balance. That's one of the ways you can tell that she's starting to find her own balance, is when they really develop a nice light contact, with a nice contact with a nice quiet mouth. So we're ending the session here. In just a second, I'm going to show you a video of the range of motion with the pelvis. So as we end the session here with a nice open walk, and here we go with the pelvis. So here I'm showing you the different pelvic positions. This is a neutral pelvis. Then I move into a posterior tilt, back into neutral, and then into an anterior tilt. And I'll show you again. Posterior, neutral, and anterior. So next I will show you what it looks like in a sitting position. Here I am showing you in a seated position in a shoulder hip heel alignment what I do, which is slightly bringing my shoulders behind the shoulder, hip heel vertical, represented by a pretty cool walking stick. And again, notice my pelvis stays in neutral position. Next I go into a posterior pelvic tuck, then neutral, and then anterior pelvic tilt. Back into neutral, and then posterior, then back into neutral again. Now I will do both together, bringing the shoulders back and posteriorly tucking my pelvis to push with my seat. And again, I'll show you that. See if you notice my pelvic tucking up underneath me, that's pushing with my seat. And again, showing you just a leaning back of the shoulder without tilting the pelvis and pushing with your seat. Notice how a neutral spine has a concave curve in the lumbar area of the back, just like this picture. And the next picture also that I'm showing you here is the first one is anteriorly tilted, two arched. Middle one is two flattened, which is a posterior tilt tuck, which is what they do when they're pushing with their seat. And so I say they do, I mean people that push and drive with their seat. That's what they're doing. They're posteriorly tilting their pelvis. And then the last one was a neutral pelvis, which is what you want to ride in, to have a small concave dip to the lumbar area of your back. Hope that helps to clear things up. With that little demo, helping people to understand how and why we sometimes bring our shoulders back, and the difference in what we do versus driving with your seat, which is what we do not do. Again, our pelvis stays nice and light and in neutral position always. We just basically hinge at the hips and bring a straight back, just bring our shoulders back a little bit behind that vertical line of our shoulder hip heel alignment. So here we have the infamous Perhaps. A lot of you know exactly who she is. She's a pretty fantastic little mare that used to be Karen's FEI horse, and now Barb Bolton owns her. And she's just a fantastic little horse that I get to ride every once in a while, and every time I ride her, I really learn something new. She's a great teacher, so I'm really fortunate and lucky to be able to take lessons on her and to experience her. Perhaps is 22 years old and in way better shape than I am. at her age. um, she is half thoroughbred, half warm blood. Um, Most of the time, she's a pretty chill woman these days. I never experienced it. From what I hear, she was one of the most craziest, dangerous, explosive horses that Will has ever worked with back in the day, which is really hard for me to believe, although I do. But it just goes to show you how much this type of work can really change the mind of a horse. Every once in a while, um, depending on the situation, whether it's a cold day and she's had a few days off because we've had a lot of rain or whatever. Sometimes on the lunge line, I've seen her kind of capriole up in the air. But typically, she's pretty chill. We don't usually even have to lunge her. We can just jump right on and just start to warm her up like I'm doing here or like I've been doing here. I think we missed a little bit of the warm-up again with the video. Another thing that I want to apologize for is that I'm not wearing a hard hat. I typically try to do that these days. I grew up never, ever, ever wearing one. I was a trick rider professionally for years and years and years, basically from 97 to just about 3 years ago in 2016. I worked as a professional acrobat on horses, doing trick riding and Roman riding and all kinds of stunts. So you can't wear a hard hat when you do that sort of thing. So like I would literally sometimes crawl under a running horse's belly and back up to the other side of the saddle 1, 2, 3, 4 times a night, 5 nights a week for a living. So for a while, it seemed very foolish and stupid of me to have to wear a hard hat and get on a horse to walk and trot and canter around, because compared to what I used to do, it's nothing. But as I get older and wiser, I realize that anything can happen. I actually have a friend that heard of one of his friends falling down 2 steps, not flights, 2 steps of stairs, and now he's a quadriplegic, and he was a young, healthy, very active individual. So anything can happen. So I do think it's a very wise thing now. And I want to encourage other people that watch me and maybe might want to and look up to me in ways or copy what I'm doing. I don't want them to see me without a hard hat, because I definitely think it's a really good idea to wear one at all times. Like I said, because anything can happen, and I realize that, and it's just a matter of getting in the habit and not forgetting to grab it. This day, and of course, Will doesn't make me do anything, just like I wouldn't make anybody do anything, but as long as they know that the responsibility that they are taking on themselves of choosing not to wear one. Um, but I think in the next video, most of the time I wear one now, especially with the younger horses. So anyway, so yes, so in saying that, so just trying to open up the trot here, and just trying to slowly warm her up today. She was actually a lot stiffer, of course. Again, they're coming off their day off, but in particular, this day, perhaps was quite a bit stiffer than usual. She has a past history of her back right hip being stiff, and that's gotten a lot better. She's moving a lot more even now, but still, um, she is a 22-year-old mare, and she is in excellent shape. But sometimes it just takes a little extra of a warm up to get um, those hips opened up and moving. So we're cantering her here, just asking for a nice stretch in the canter. This will really help her back, preparing for her working gaits. This just kind of helps um, send her up a little bit more underneath herself, and create a little bit more thrust up through the back, which is what we're looking for. So the canter just kind of helps her, in particular, helps her get a little bit more thrust through the back. So that's what we're doing with the canter work. And of course, we want to have a nice stretch in the canter work, like what we do with all the gaits. We want to be able to have a nice stretch in all of the gaits. And just bringing her back into a working frame in a walk. You can see how the walk is improved from the canter work. So of course, like us, when we get up, when I get up and first thing in the morning, I like to, first thing I do is have a cup of coffee. I say I'm not really human until I have a cup of coffee. Same thing with these horses. We typically get them started first thing early in the morning, and I try to make sure, especially a horse like Perhaps, tries to eat the majority of her grain before we pull her out to get her going. That way, she's got some substance in her, and she can do things that she needs to get done. So you just saw, we'll come up and send her into a little pee off. That also gets her really engaging that back in and gets her a little bit more over her back and kind of really stepping up underneath herself, like more. Just kind of helps her, like the shoulder in aids in helping us get them over their back and more over themselves. The pee off can also do the same thing. So obviously, after I walked off from the pee off, her working walk was much better. So that's why we do that. Back in the day, Will taught her pee off because she was so crazy and hot. That was the only way he could get her kind of under control, was to have her concentrate on a very specific thing like pee off. Um, so here we're asking her for a little half pass. Um, Something that I don't have a lot of experience in, at least doing it correctly. So at times I kind of get the hindquarters a little in front of the shoulder, which we don't want. And sometimes it perhaps doesn't really like to bend around my, keep that bend around my inside leg. So it's a work in progress. So just doing a little shoulder in here, getting up that inside leg a little bit more up underneath her. Thrust, trying to get that energy coming up through her back. So Perhaps is about 15 3 hands, and I'm a smaller guy, about 5'7", with about 140 pounds. So we fit each other really well as far as size goes. I can really get up underneath her with my leg aid to help engage her abs and ask for her back. Kind of pluck her abs to get her abs to help lift her back up a little bit. So again, another half pass in the opposite direction. And you'll notice here when I do this half pass, obviously her hindquarters are a little bit in front of her shoulders, which is incorrect. So I'll just open up that that right rein a little bit to get her to bring her shoulders more in front of her hips like she just did. Another thing that I have an issue with, I have a lot of body issues from all the acrobatic stuff I used to do. I'm extremely tight in my hip flexors, and one of the things that I've noticed as I'm riding her, in up close shots of me asking for lateral movements, is I typically I try to mentally get in. I try to, anytime I ask any lateral movements, or I'm on a circle or anything like that, any leg that comes back, I try to make sure the leg comes back from the hip, not from the knee. But that is very difficult for me to do since I really have some tight hip flexors. I've definitely started stretching on a daily basis, and it's made a huge difference. But it's still a challenge because they're still tight, I think, compared to most normal people. Um, so it's a challenge. I would like to see my leg a little bit further away from the block when it comes back. That would tell me that that my leg is coming back from the correct place. But I think because my hip flexors are that tight, I tend to try to get a little bit further back from my knee down, which is incorrect. So here we're in a working frame on the circle. Notice she's coming up underneath herself better now as the session goes on, and as she warms up, she kind of starting to swing through a little bit more with her hind end. um, so again, one thing that again, because I'm out of shape, she's in much better shape than me. So as I sit the trot, of course, we're doing that to help her back come up a bit more and to collect a bit more. But when I do that, I'm still getting in shape. So most of the time, I feel like a fish flopping around out of water in the saddle. Um, so that doesn't help her at all. I feel like, although it might not look like I'm bouncing a lot, I feel like I am. Um, and so again, I can only sit the trot for so long and do more of the collected work myself. So you'll see me sit for just about a circle or two, and then I'll start my rising trot again because I really can't handle any longer than that. I'm just not there yet. Just like Rafaela, we're asking her, we're bringing her up more into a working frame. I know it's not collection, but same thing as I sit, that's bringing me a little bit more into a working frame with my body. And I can do that for just a little while, but before long, I'll start to lose the quality of my seat, and I'll start to have tension in my body. So when that starts, as soon as that starts to happen, I'll start to rise on my trot again, because I don't want perhaps to be affected by my lack of quality. Um, and so I'll start rising trot and start to loosen my body and relax my body again, and kind of bring me back to the quality that I need to be as far as my body. And it's a work in progress. I go to the gym 5 days a week. I stretch every day. I'm in great shape. Um, as far as somebody's body goes, I have strength and a decent amount of flexibility. But still, it goes to show you that you can't replace riding in the gym. Riding is just a whole different ball game, and to get the strength and the endurance to be able to ride and more in a collected and working gaits, you just need to ride. And again, I've been very inconsistent in riding because I don't have my own horse, and with my schedule that I have with my saddle fitting business that I started a couple years back. So just trying to find a balance between everything. And now we're just sending her back on a walk and just trying to open her up a little bit and let her ask her to do a little bit more of a stretch. And so, like I said before, as your horse strengthens their back and you start to bring them up into the working trot, you can start to sit the trot for a few strides to see where they're at. If they lose their back, start to rise again, and eventually they will be able to sustain their back, and their rhythm will stay the same, and you can sit for longer periods of time. Perhaps doesn't really have this problem. Like I said, she's in pretty great shape, and she can sustain for longer periods of time than I can. But still, it doesn't mean I spend the whole entire session, in a seated trot if I had the endurance to do that. At times, we need to send her back as soon as you feel her start to lose the quality, because she will only be able to sustain it for so long. So we just kind of stretch them again, kind of going back and forth throughout the lesson, asking her to do more difficult strength things, and then sending her into a nice stretch to relax it. Again, I'm asking her to do a little pee off. Will comes up to kind of back me up because she's a little bit stiff and lazy. So Will's kind of comes up as a little bit of a backup. We would like to see her pushing off a little bit more off the ground in the pee off. But again, given where she's at today, that's all we're going to get, and we're not really going to push her for much more than that, because we realize that's all she can give us today, which is fine. We're not gonna, we're not gonna sit there and drill her for hours doing a pee off. That would be defeating the purpose of what we're trying to do here. But again, I'm sitting, doing a little bit more of a collected trot, bringing her a little bit further up. Now a little bit down more into a working frame, but just trying to, again, this is really difficult for me, not so much for Perhaps, but very difficult for me. I start to kind of lose the quality of my seat, and I start to get a lot of tension in my body. You can tell that. So again, it's a work in progress. It's a process for me too. Slowly but surely I will get in shape, and I'll be able to do it. But until then, I'm not gonna. There's no sense of me riding around trying to collect Perhaps when I'm literally falling apart and have tension in my body, because I'm never gonna get that quality from her if I don't have that quality in my own body. But even like when I canter her, you'll probably see, I think, in the next video that I'm working her. Sometimes when I'm cantering her, I just like to send her. Oh, here we go with a little bit of a medium trot here. Again, easy for her, difficult for me. And again, I think she's in a certain not in her best today, but also I'm not helping her as far as where I'm at with my level of fitness. So after I always apologize for her. Anyway, apologize to her for not being in the greatest shape. So anyway, we're about to end this session here in a second. You see in this trot, she's definitely swinging through more with her back end, and it's definitely improved. But again, where she's at today, that's what we're going to get. So this is, I believe, the next day. You could already tell she's moving a bit better, less stiff. I have my helmet on, which is probably why. Again, typically, I do wear my helmet a lot more these days, and I'm trying to get a habit of wearing it every day. So typically for Perhaps at the end of her session, her trot will slow down and get longer and deeper with a lot more bounce. When this happens, you'll see a little of a lift in the withers. This is because she's deeper with each stride, really pushing off the ground, and that energy is moving forward and up through her back, lightening the forehand, and you'll see the shoulders free up a bit more. You'll see that a little bit more typically with her than you did in the last lesson at the end of the last lesson we just had. So again, with the canter, excuse me, for the canter, we just do a nice canter, as the canter really helps Perhaps to establish some thrust up into her back from her hind end. Again, she can get a bit stiff in her hips, so the canter really helps her to track up underneath herself and really push off the ground and send some thrust through her back, which is what we're looking for. So Perhaps it's got a nice canter. So typically, I want to see a little less of a bend in her neck and the canter, but I was supposed to be doing a counter canter right there, but and which is why I had her bent to the left that much, because typically she tries to, and I don't even know, I think I got a little lost here. But typically, you don't want to see that much of a bend in the canter, but I do that because I know that she anticipates the flying change. Also, she's very sensitive in the flying changes, so I tend to overbend her until she kind of has an idea of what I'm asking her to do, and then I'll try to straighten her up a little bit more. And again, you really have to put your outside leg really as far back as possible to keep her in a counter canter here. I had a little bit of a brain fart here. I'm a little confused on what I'm supposed to be doing, but I get my act together here in a second. I'm just basically supposed to be repeating what the counter canter that I was doing before. But you'll see me here do this. So again, I come around and just have my leg super far back, have her a little overbent more than I'd like to see in a canter, but again, it's to help her keep that counter canter. Keeping that leg, that outside leg far enough back for me, again, is sometimes difficult because of that tight hip flexor issue I have. But now I kind of open her up a little bit, kind of going a little bit more up into a 2-point, kind of just trying to lighten up my seat and get off her back a bit. Just really open up that canter. So even though she has a strength, you know, sometimes you just want to give her back a little bit of a break, especially if we know we're gonna be asking her to do some more collected stuff. Here we have a little bit of a flying change. Gonna bring her back down, a little bit more of a working canter. And again, a lead change. She came through a little bit better in the back end. Usually her lead change, if she has any issue in her lead change, it's usually rider error, because I'm not the greatest at it. So here we have a few more lead changes, and bring her back down, and she has a much better quality trot here. This working trot's really nice. She's really coming through better in the back end, more evenly with both both hind end legs, which is nice. So keep in mind, if this work is done correctly, you're not just building and strengthening these large muscles. You're also strengthening these synergist muscles, the supporting muscles to the smaller supporting muscles to the large muscles. When all the smaller supporting muscles help the bigger muscles, the horse's structure, most importantly the spine, are much more stabilized, flexible, and protected, adding to the longevity and quality of your horse's life. So you can see the trot here slows down. She gets much deeper, and it's a lot bouncier, which is nice. So most importantly, don't forget all of this is it's a process, and to enjoy the process with your horse, and enjoy the development of both of you, and physically, mentally, and emotionally, and be open to change your mind if what needs to be done constantly during your session. You should be constantly asking yourself, what does my horse need from me right now, right? So just keep that in mind every time you get your horse out to work with him. So anyway, thanks so much for watching. Hopefully you'll see more of Rafaela, Perhaps, and I in the near future. So till then, take care. This is Perhaps looking great in a nice working trot. Bye-bye.